Hey, I get it, you're staring at the quote for a new branch office router and wondering if you should shell out for a 5G box that promises enterprise-grade reliability, or just stick with a cheaper LTE stick you already have. You've probably read a handful of spec sheets, maybe watched a couple of demo videos, and now the big question is whether this thing will actually keep your point-of-sale terminals and security cameras online when the main line goes down. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of situation the Cradlepoint E3000 is built for. This isn't a consumer-grade Wi-Fi extender you toss on a couch. It's a dedicated 5G branch router that also carries an LTE fallback, and it comes bundled with a year of Cradlepoint's NetCloud Enterprise Branch Essentials plan. In plain English, you're buying a piece of hardware that talks to a 5G network, can automatically drop back to LTE if the 5G signal disappears, and gives you a cloud-based dashboard to manage multiple sites from a single console. If you run a small chain of retail stores, a fleet of service vans, or a remote construction office where wired broadband simply isn't an option, that combination can be a real lifesaver. That said, the E3000's price tag is not trivial. You're paying for a router, a 5G modem, the Wi-Fi access point, and the NetCloud subscription all in one box. The biggest risk is buying it for a location that doesn't have solid 5G coverage in the first place. Cradlepoint's own marketing material promises carrier-grade performance, but the real world can be a lot more patchy. In cities with dense 5G rollout, you'll probably see the speeds you expect, but in suburbs or rural areas the device will spend most of its time on LTE, which is slower and can be more expensive per gigabyte. If you're counting on the router to be the sole internet source for a busy point-of-sale system, that fallback could become a bottleneck. So who should actually consider this router? The sweet spot is a business that already relies on 5G for at least part of its connectivity and needs a managed solution to keep that link stable. Think of a chain of coffee shops that each have a 5G line already installed for digital menu boards. Adding the E3000 gives them a single pane of glass to push firmware updates, set bandwidth limits, and monitor uptime across all locations without having to log into each device individually. The NetCloud plan also adds VPN capabilities, which means your back office can securely tunnel into each branch without extra hardware. For a field service company that equips its vans with 5G routers to run diagnostics software, the automatic LTE fallback ensures that a weak 5G spot doesn't leave the tech stranded. On the flip side, if you're a home-based freelancer, a small office with a reliable DSL or cable line, or a business located in an area where 5G is still a pilot project, you're probably better off with a conventional LTE router or even a simple cable modem. The E3000's management suite is overkill if you only have one site, and the subscription cost adds up quickly after the first year. You'll be paying for NetCloud month after month. Also, the overall rating on Amazon sits at a modest 2.2 out of 5 from just 3 reviews, which suggests that early adopters have hit some snags, whether it's firmware quirks, difficulty setting up the Wi-Fi SSID, or simply the expectation that the device would perform like a high-end enterprise gateway. Let's break down the practical strengths you actually get out of the box. The first is the seamless LTE fallback. In testing, the router monitors the 5G signal strength every few seconds and automatically switches to LTE when the quality drops below a configurable threshold. For a store that processes dozens of credit card transactions per hour, that switch happens fast enough that the POS never times out. The second strength is the built-in Wi-Fi 6 access point. It's not a massive multi-radio system, but it provides decent coverage for a typical 2,000 square foot floor, and you can broadcast separate SIDs for staff and guests without needing a separate AP. The third is the NetCloud dashboard. Even if you're not a networking guru, the UI walks you through setting up a VPN tunnel, applying a bandwidth cap for guest Wi-Fi, and generating a simple uptime report that you can share with your manager. Now for the weaknesses that matter after you've opened the box. The first is the learning curve. The initial setup wizard assumes you're comfortable with terms like APN, VLAN tagging, and static routing. If you've never touched a router's CLI, you'll likely spend an hour watching the Cradlepoint knowledge base videos before you get a stable connection. Second, the hardware itself feels a bit cramped. The antennas are internal, so in a building with thick concrete walls the signal can struggle, and you can't swap in higher gain.